to a follow-up. A not guilty verdict was reached this afternoon in the trial of former Smith County Deputy Constable Derek Holman. KLTV's Lauren Tier was in the courtroom and joins us now with the very latest.
Yes, Anissa, after several hours of deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict of not guilty in the case of Derek Holman, who was previously accused of theft and public oppression during a house eviction that he helped conduct back in January of 2021. The defense presented its case today, calling 4 character witnesses to the stand. All witnesses testified that they knew Holman to be an honest man of upstanding character. Witnesses included a former co-worker and friend, a childhood friend, a pastor, and his high school football coach. Holman and his attorney, Michael Todd, say they were relieved after the verdict was read.
It's been a long time coming. It's been almost 2 years. We've been waiting on this day.
We had 12 good citizens from Smith County. There was a good cross-section of individuals. They listened to the case. They were intent with respect to to listening, and they made a determination that we feel was the proper decision, not guilty.
Todd also said they knew the trial would be a battle and that they had a lot to work through, but ultimately the state was unable to prove without a reasonable doubt that Holman was guilty of the crimes. And Anissa, I can tell you Holman's friends and family were definitely celebrating as they left the courthouse today.
Thank you, Lauren. We appreciate your report.